Alright, welcome to my Metroid Fusion redesign breakdown. I probably should be doing a breakdown of Teeth first because I made it first, but um, yeah, I mean this is fresh in my memory, so I wanted to talk about it. Um, so a little bit of context. Metroid Fusion was my favorite game for a long time. It probably isn't anymore, but it's still definitely one of my favorite games. I really, really love Metroid Fusion. I know it's often maligned in the Metroid series, but I absolutely love it. The atmosphere, the tension, the horror. Looking back on it and thinking of like the styles of things I enjoy and like working on now, it makes sense that Metroid Fusion would be my favorite in the series, because it just has so much atmosphere. Um, I absolutely love the Metroid series. It's my favorite video game series, without doubt. Um, I love the Dark Souls series and other FromSoft games as well, but Metroid is for sure my favorite series. Metroid Fusion specifically. Uh, let's see. So when the DS came out, well, I didn't grow up with consoles. I didn't really grow up with video games in general. Um, but when the DS came out, a friend of mine who had gotten the DS gave me his old Game Boy Advance SP and Lego Racers 2, I think. And so I played the hell out of that. Although, actually, I don't really remember it much. I should probably try playing it again. But anyway, I had that. I probably had a couple games for it. I think I probably got Yoshi's Island for it, which I still have. Um, but my grandfather went to a flea market or something in Florida, I think, and came back with a couple Game Boy Advance games. One of them was a Sims game, which I don't think I've really ever played. I feel like there was some problem with it. One of them was an F-Zero game. I think there was another one that I don't remember, and there was Metroid Fusion. And Metroid Fusion was the first one of those games that I played. And I would say that it was probably the first game that made me really like video games. Like, appreciate them as something more than just something to play. I can't remember if I had really played any computer games at that point. Like, I played a lot of the Lego Racers, um, Lego Indiana Jones, Rock Raiders, all the old Lego games, and then some of the newer Lego games. The first, the early newer Lego games like Lego Indiana Jones 1. Um, but it was just something I enjoyed. Metroid Fusion was like it captivated me. I loved it. And so then I went on. I've played all the Metroid games, or all of the 2D Metroid games. I haven't actually played the Prime games yet. After I finish playing, I've tried playing Prime 1 a couple times. I have the remastered version on my Switch, and after I finish Silent Hill 2, which is what I'm currently playing, I am dedicated to completing Metroid Prime because I love the atmosphere, the level design, the world. It's the sound, the music. It's phenomenal. But I've never really been a big fan of first-person games, and I find it very difficult to navigate and explore in the same way that I do in a 2D Metroid game. So anyway, that's my whole backstory on the Metroid series, but also just generally video games. So since I loved Metroid Fusion so much, I wanted to do a redesign of it, even though I don't really like doing redesigns that much, as I've talked about before. But it was something I had in mind for a while, that I was like, I want to do a redesign of that. So maybe a month ago or something, I did a quick playthrough of Metroid Fusion and recorded the whole thing. And then just kind of went through it a little bit to look for something that seemed like it'd be fun, and pretty quickly I came across the SAX. It's the final SAX chase scene, I believe. It's probably the hardest SAX chase scene, and I was like, I think that's probably pretty good. I had thought that I would do Nightmare, because Nightmare is my favorite boss. Not really gameplay wise. The boss mechanically isn't that great, I think, but I mean, you blast off its face and it's like melting onto the ground. It's pretty gnarly for a Game Boy Advance game. It's really, really cool in how it plays with gravity and all. It's awesome. So that's kind of what I had thought I would do a redesign of, but this SAX chase scene is, I think, probably, anyone who has played Metroid Fusion can attest that, especially the first time you come across this scene, it is intense. For those who haven't played Metroid Fusion or Metroid games in general, basically in Metroid Fusion there's this virus called the X, which can infect something, and then basically it takes over it, and then it can multiply and recreate copies of that thing, and it can like morph into other things and make monstrosity combinations of all these different species and stuff like that. And basically Samus, the main character, got infected with it and almost died, but they like extracted the suit off her body and healed her with Metroid. And then, because there was still some of this X virus on her armor, it recreated her, and the SAX is basically just a maybe mindless, it's kind of hard to say for sure, just kind of animalistic clone of Samus that's extremely, extremely powerful. This thing can kill you in just, I mean, you see in this clip, it kills you in like 2 or 3 shots. It's very, very strong, and you can't hurt it at all. All you can do is shoot it with an ice missile to freeze it, which just stuns it for, maybe a second, if that. So this scene is very intense, and the atmosphere. Well, I'll play it actually. I'll play the original version here. All right, so this is the original audio. So that is the original audio. I guess I'll also have to talk some about the Game Boy Advance hardware to explain a bit, but this obviously sounds very different from my redesign. Not just in terms of, obviously the sounds are different, but the sound style is very different. That's because this uses a lot of samples and mine is all synthesized. I mean, the samples it uses are almost certainly synthesized, but the way it's implemented is different. But yeah, it's a pretty intense scene, and so I decided to go with it. So the other reason I had wanted to do a Metroid Fusion redesign was to get some experience with 8-bit sound design, which I didn't realize how broad the term 8-bit sound design was. I kind of thought 8-bit sound design was just like original Game Boy and NES. But no, kind of just like everything before. The Super Nintendo wasn't. I think some other consoles from that generation were, but the Super Nintendo wasn't. And then pretty much everything past that generation, like N64, PS1, GameCube, all of those things, they aren't 8-bit sound design. But basically everything before that, I think, was. I went to Fun Spot recently, which is the largest arcade in the world, and it's a really, really cool place if you're able to go. I've been a couple times before. I wish I could go more regularly, but it's a ways away. But while I was there, I played Crystal Castles, maybe for the first time. I don't remember if I've played it before or not, but the sound design really stood out to me, and I really liked it, even though it's really minimal and kind of harsh. Very simple. Just these little crunchy ticks as you pick up the crystals or whatever they are. And then there are these bees. I can find something with the bees. The bees make this like sort of sound. Where are they? Oh, there they are. That's the sound of the bees. But it's just this very simple, crunchy sound, but I really like it. And also the Metroid 2 soundtrack, which is kind of infamous. I think that's probably what Metroid 2 is most infamous for, is a lot of people, including myself, at least in the past, not really a big fan of its soundtrack, because a lot of the time this is what you're hearing. There's these weird little squelchy sounds that I looking at it now, I think it's supposed to be more ambience than music, that it's supposed to be these weird alien sounds on this weird alien world, which is cool. It's cool that they would try to do that, but I think the Game Boy just didn't really have the capabilities to fully realize that vision. Now, interestingly, I think this is probably fairly well known at this point, but the Caverns 1 theme was later repurposed as the Emmy sound from Metroid Dread, which is pretty cool. It's a really nice sound, but it's when you're playing a game and this is kind of all you're hearing for the most part, it might not necessarily draw you in, but it does have a lot of really cool stuff as well. So like the title theme. This is just such a weird, eerie, creepy alien sound for a title theme of a game. I think there's a cool one. I don't remember what it is, but it has some sort of phasing stuff. It almost sounds like a flanger or something is on it, even though it's not possible. I don't remember what one it's on. This is one of my alarms now. I think it's this one. Yeah. Oh, this is the one actually. You can hear it, that sort of phasing. I don't know if it would really be phasing or not, but it does sort of sound like a flanger. I'm not really sure how that was done. I'm guessing it's probably detuning the Pulse 1 and Pulse 2 against each other with the pitch sweep capabilities of Pulse 1, I would guess, but I'm not sure. But anyway, it's just something I've been paying more attention to and enjoying more recently. So before I got started on this redesign, I needed to do some research, and because I wanted to do it, as accurately as I could. I needed to do research into what the Game Boy Advance could do. I'm going to be using the term sound chip. I don't think that's entirely accurate. I don't think the Game Boy Advance actually has a dedicated sound chip. I'm not sure if the Game Boy did either, but I'm just using it in the sense of the thing that makes the sounds, essentially. The thing that determines the sound capabilities of the console. So the Game Boy Advance essentially has two quote-unquote sound chips. One, which is just the Game Boy sound chip, which has 4 synth channels. And then one, which is the direct sound, which are 2 sampler channels. I think 2 8-bit sampler channels. I think the sample rate is kind of flexible, but if I remember correctly, it was usually between 11 and 16 kilohertz. But I think you could set it what you wanted the sample rate to be. This guy has a lot of cool stuff about the Game Boy Advance audio. This video was pretty cool. He took an MP3 file and turned it into a Game Boy Advance ROM, and then loaded it onto a flash cart. Bumble sneezes a lot. And then it just played the song from his Game Boy Advance. But he referenced this, which has more information about it and how to actually play samples on the Game Boy Advance through the direct sound channels. But these two websites were my primary sources for learning about the Game Boy Advance's audio capabilities. There were some other websites I referenced as well, but these were the two main ones. So after having learned about the direct sound channels, which it definitely should have been obvious to me all along, because like if you listen to this, oops. Like, this isn't chiptune sounding. It's a lot more complex than four simple synth channels could do. And I think a lot, if not all, it's probably not all, but I think a lot of the sounds here are handled by those direct sound channels. Like, you know, if you listen here, I think the soundtrack and the footsteps are probably just handled by one direct sound channel. And then I think a lot of these sound effects anyway are handled by the other, if I was to guess. I don't know. It would be pretty cool if there was a way to sort of like watch what the Game Boy Advance was doing in real time and see what it's playing through the direct sound channels and what it's playing through the Game Boy sound chip. I don't know. But anyway, after having learned about this, it put me in a bit of a quandary where I had to decide how much, if at all, I was going to use the direct sound channels. Because, you know, with doing 8-bit sound design as a major motivation for this, the direct sound channels kind of threw a wrench in that, because that meant I could really just make whatever sound effects I wanted and then, reduce their bit depth and sample rate and use them here. Which, while it obviously, lets me do much more, seemed kind of boring and not really what I was looking for in this. But if I just relied on the Game Boy sound chip, I'm making something more along the lines of the Metroid 2 sound design. So I spent a little while trying to figure out how I wanted to handle this, and eventually I landed on viewing it as like in this sort of imaginary situation where I'm doing the sound design for Metroid Fusion, that I'm gonna leave the direct sound channels for the composer. Like, the composer can do whatever they want with the direct sound channels. I'm just gonna use the Game Boy sound chip. So after deciding on that, and I thought I might maybe eventually make like an ambience with one of the direct sound channels, because really the composer probably doesn't need both of them, but I didn't end up doing that. I might at some point, but I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. So after deciding that, I needed to learn the specifics of the Game Boy sound channels. I don't know how in depth I want to get into this, because it would probably be pretty boring, as if it isn't already. But basically, the 4 sound channels on the Game Boy sound chip are Pulse 1, which is a pulse wave with 12.5, 25, 50, and 75% duty cycles, and a sweep, a pitch sweep. Pulse 2, which is the same as Pulse 1, except it doesn't have the pitch sweep. Wave, which plays 4-bit waveforms that are 32 or 64 samples long, which is how I think some Game Boy games occasionally had effectively it effectively played samples by chopping up the sample into 32 or 64 sample long chunks and then just playing them all in order. But I didn't use it like that. I just used, just like a single waveform for a single sound. And then noise, which generates pseudo-random noise in a complex way that I don't really entirely understand. I kind of get it to some degree, but I don't get it enough to be able to perfectly replicate it for this. But the important thing to me was that it was 1-bit noise that had tonal qualities. Like, it's not, I don't think it's really tuned to specific pitches, but you can play it at different rates. I think it goes off of divisions of the CPU clock. The different divisions of that give you these different, effectively, tones or pitches from the noise. There's also the output bit depth, which is 4-bit for the pulse channels and the noise channel, and is 3-bit kind of for the wave channel. It's very strange. So you see here, so these 3 bits, 13, 14, and 15, control the volume in a very strange way. I don't really understand why it was done like this. I'm sure there was a very good reason for it. I'm not claiming to know better than the people who designed the Game Boy sound chip, but looking at it from the outside, it's quite strange. So 13 and 14, when it's set to 0, it's silent. When it's set to 1, it's full volume. When it's set to 2, it's 50% volume, and when it's set to 3, it's 25% volume. Then the bit 15, when it is 0, it uses the result from this, and when it is 1, it forces 75%. So by using these 3 bits, you can have 0%, 25%, 50%, 75%, and 100%. Which is sort of weird. I'm sure there must be a really good reason for having it be able to force a certain volume. But I had to well, I'll show that in a little bit. But anyway, okay, so that's the output bit depth. I guess I'll show how I actually replicated them. So these are not replicated perfectly, for sure. I completely realized that. But I wanted to replicate them as realistically as I feasibly could inside Reaper. So like, I could have theoretically done this all in LSDJ, which is a custom Game Boy ROM that is used for chiptune music. I could have like sequenced this whole thing on LSDJ, and that would be more realistic and like hardware accurate. But that would, I don't know LSDJ. I'd have to learn LSDJ. It would just be excruciating to do. I mean, look at how many tracks I have here. I would have to, it would be and even how I have things choking other things out, I would have to, it would be very difficult. So what I came to was I created these 4 presets, and these aren't my initial versions. You'll probably see some of the initial versions that kind of stuck around, but eventually I came down on these presets for each of the channels. So Pulse 1, I have a macro. Pulse 1 and Pulse 2 are pretty much identical. The only difference is that I have the pitch key locked or transpose snapped on Pulse 2, but I don't have it locked like that on Pulse 1. The sweep capabilities, I think, are much more complex than how I have them implemented here. I don't really understand it. I don't really understand how the sweep works, or if I understood it, how I would be able to implement it in Vital or Phase Plant or something like that. As best I can tell, essentially what it does is it allows it to move between notes. So with Pulse 2, you have A sharp, B. With Pulse 1, I think you can glide to some degree between notes. I think it's not like I think there is a resolution to that glide. Like, it doesn't just smoothly glide. But for sake of sanity, I just thought of it as basically, okay, it can glide smoothly between notes. I can have it move without snapping to notes is what I did. Is that accurate? No, but it's what I had to do. So I have that. I have this macro here, which controls the pulse width. I have 50, 25, and 12.5%. I don't have 75%. I don't think it's really a problem. I think 25% and 75% should be basically the same thing. But in any case, not using 75% isn't a problem, because even if I was doing it on LSDJ or something, I could just not use 75%, so that's fine. Then I have this pitch envelope set up with this macro controlling the modulation amount. So when this is all the way down, it doesn't apply any pitch envelope. I can, fine tune how much of a pitch envelope I want. Then I have an LFO modulating the pitch with this macro controlling the depth of that. And then this controls the LFO rate. So that's for the synthesizer. Then I have the output controlled separately for most things anyway. I do have some things where it's in Vital, but I had to set up LFOs and stuff. I'll show you that later. But this is the snap heap preset I made for controlling the 4-bit output. So I've got a gain here set to percentage. So It's set to 0%. There's this macro, which goes into this 16-step remap that controls the gain. So you can just, go between 0 and 100% in 16 steps. Then I have this envelope that is modulating that volume control, and an LFO that's also modulating that volume control. This controls the tremolo rate, and this controls the tremolo depth. So basically this just lets me have 16-bit volume modulation. For both this and the pitch modulation, there is the question of how fast is too fast, and I do not know. Obviously, arpeggios are a very common thing in chiptune music, because the number of channels was so limited. If you wanted to play a chord, you couldn't have, like, if you wanted to play a triad, I think, a 3-note chord, it would use up 3 of your 4 channels. It just isn't economical, basically. So what you would do is you would very quickly arpeggiate through those through those notes with a single channel, which would give you a similar sound to playing that chord, but it's a very unique sound that is, very distinct from just playing that chord normally, and it's very iconic to chiptune music. So those arpeggios can go very fast, but I don't know how fast they can possibly go, because so let's let me get pulse 2 here. Oops. I need to unsolo this. Okay. So let me bring this up. Turn this down. Probably good. So I have it key snapped here. If I wanted to play a C major chord, I could do this, and then turn up the LFO depth. What? What is it doing? Oh, yep, that's right. I need to get rid of the macro envelopes. Let me play at a higher note, so it's, there you go. That's easier to hear. This is obviously kind of a lopsided arpeggio, because how it's doing it here is this LFO is going up and down, and it's sort of jumping between these notes. But obviously there are more gaps at the top here, so there's kind of a gap before it it starts going back down again. So it sounds a bit weird, but something like this is pretty common to hear in chiptune music. But you can start pushing it. And at this point, it's getting kind of close to FM. A very weird form of FM. But I don't know where that line is. I don't know where it goes from being hardware accurate arpeggio to being FM, basically. And what I decided was, I don't care. I'm just gonna do it. Same thing goes for the volume. I have this tremolo here. Let's see. I can control the volume of the channel, but how fast can I control the volume? I don't know. So I just didn't worry about it. Which I think is just kind of fun. Like I'm already being very restricted here. I'm not gonna worry about, oh, I can only go up to 20 hertz or something. Like, no, I'm just gonna do what works. Let's see. So that's the Pulse 1 and Pulse 2. Basically, they're essentially the same, other than this one not snapping to notes. Which, again, I don't know if that's the most accurate recreation of how the pitch sweep works, but yeah, it's what was feasible. So then wave. Now, this was really fun. I really liked the wave. I didn't expect what a substantial part of the wave would be. So the wave channel ended up being super useful here in ways that I wouldn't have necessarily expected. So again, it plays 4-bit waveforms that are 32 to 64 samples long, or it's 32 or 64 samples long. I think if you use 32, you can like quickly switch between the two halves, basically, something like that. I don't remember. I didn't do that at all. I just used 64 sample long waveforms. But first I had to find a way to make them. So big thanks to actually I don't remember who it was. Someone in the sound design Discord helped me out. I was looking for something that I could use to draw a waveform, like individually control the points in the waveform. And someone told me about this program, Wave Edit. Gwenon in the sound design Discord told me about this program, and it's awesome. I want to use it more because it's just really cool. But it just lets you draw waveforms, and so you can draw them spectrally like this, or you can just literally draw the waveform itself, and then you can use it for making wavetables. You can sort of like blend between them, and it has all these sort of modulations you can do to it and stuff. Really cool program. So what I did after I started playing around with this a bit was just drawing these 64 sample long waveforms. I didn't really know it at the time, but I didn't have to be so precise here. I like made sure they were all just exactly 64 samples long, but it didn't actually matter how I ended up doing it. But I drew a whole bunch of waveforms. I had a bit of difficulty getting them into a form I could use. Originally what I did was, so after you draw these waveforms, you can go to, I think it's Save Waves to Folder, and you can pick a folder, and then it just exports all of these waveforms as wave files. And so then I went into Reaper and trimmed them to be 64 samples long, and exported them at a 4-bit depth. And for some reason, I'm guessing it's probably the bit depth, but I'm not sure. Vital and Phase Plant couldn't handle them. I would try importing it as a waveform or sample, and it just didn't work. So I started out using Resamplematic, which is still used in a couple things, I think. I don't remember what exactly. I'll find them once I get down to actually breaking down individual sounds. I use that for a couple things. Eventually, it's very not ideal for this because I couldn't really do any of the interesting modulation stuff that I wanted to do in Phase Plant or Vital with it. Eventually, what I figured out I could do was, after I trimmed them to be 64 samples long, and actually I may have even kept some longer, I don't remember. But after I had exported them as 4-bit files, I could then re-import them and export them again as 24 or 16-bit, I don't remember, probably 24. And then Vital and I don't know if I even tried Phase Plant, but Vital was able to handle them fine. So what I did was, let me pull it up here. Waveforms, no, 4-bit, 64 long, full length, re-exported. So yeah, I guess these are full length. I didn't trim them to be 64 samples long, but they're 4-bit, and then imported and then re-exported at 24-bit. So then I can come into Vital and pull one of these in to Wavetable, and then come here and then set the window size to 64. And now the first frame is using the first 64 samples of that waveform. I'm not sure why it isn't moving. I don't know. But that's what I found to work well. And it ended up, yeah, it ended up being really, really useful, as you'll see later on. To handle the 3-ish bit output, I used a very similar thing to what I had shown before, but rather than the 16-step remap, I got the quantized 8 remap, and then basically split it into these 5 levels of 0, 25, 50, 75, 100. It was a little weird because I couldn't split it into 5 sections horizontally. I think it goes from no. It goes from 4 to 6 here. But that all that did was just have it be at 100% a little bit longer in terms of like setting up an envelope or whatever, which didn't really matter in the end. Then the noise channel I used phase plant for. I got the stepped noise, which is already pretty close to the sound of that noise. But I set it to quantize at full drive, so it's a 1-bit output. And then I additionally put bit crush on here and set it to 1-bit just to make sure it's 1-bit. And then I have it's not it's not notes, but the different tones of the noise, they are discrete tones. You can't like glide between those different tones. So what I did was I took these 48 semitone chromatic remaps and you connected those to the pitch control here, and then I could have an envelope or whatever control an envelope or LFO control the pitch quote unquote of the noise, and then I have the same 4-bit output. So that's how I set up those. There are different ones. I made some variations on those when I needed at different points, but that's what I used most of the time. So like if I was making a sound and I needed a specific channel, I just copy this, plop it in whatever group I'm working in, and then I can just use that sound and tweak it however I want. And I had a lot of these macros set up, as you can see here, so I can control, the LFO depth or rate or whatever over time. Okay, so I think that's about it for the setup. I know I've been talking for probably an hour and a half or something at this point, but no, maybe it's like an hour. I don't know. Anyway, I guess I should probably get down to actually breaking down the sound. Well, so one more thing. A sort of philosophical thing I realized early on here was, oh my goodness, my throat is getting sore from all this talking. It seems counterintuitive, but I think it is best when making sound design, like 8-bit sound design like this, where you have a very limited number of channels. I think it is best to actually, for each sound, try to use multiple channels if possible. The reason being that obviously different sounds have different importances at different times. Like, I don't know, if there are like footsteps or something like that, and there's the SAX is shooting a missile at you. It doesn't shoot missiles at you, but it's shooting a missile at you, and that missile sound uses noise. It's more important for you to be able to hear that missile sound than for you to hear your footsteps. So if you only use noise in the footsteps, when that happens and the missile sound is playing, you don't hear any footsteps. But if you use, for example, a noise channel and a wave channel, in that instance, assuming the missile isn't also using the wave channel, you can still have like half of the footstep sound play, even though the other half is being used up by a different sound. So realizing this was very useful because it allowed me to actually, I didn't really have to worry about it a lot of the time, but there are several very complex sections where there are a lot of things happening at the same time, and being able to choose like, okay, for all of these sounds, what is the most important channel for that sound, for it to communicate whatever that sound is communicating, while still allowing the other sounds to communicate their own things. Let me see if I can find a good example. I think there's one later on with some explosion or something. Their footsteps. Yeah. So like here, there, Samus. Okay, this little section here. Bomb is exploding, and Samus lands and then takes a couple footsteps. The bomb explosion sound, I don't know if I'd exactly say it's important, because like it's pretty obvious that the bomb is going off, but you want the bomb to have a big sound. You want it to really take up the sound there, and a lot of that comes from the noise. So what I was able to do was Samus's footsteps use the noise channel and the wave channel. So what I could do here is I did mute the bomb for her landing, but her footsteps, I'm just muting the noise channel for the footsteps while the bomb is going off, but I still played the wave channel and just like choked out the wave channel section of the explosion sound. But anyway, I guess I'll go into the individual sounds now. So Morph Ball. So it has a pulse 1 and a noise channel. These are color coded. So the teal is pulse 1, brown is noise, yellow is wave, and pink is pulse 2. So as a pulse 1 and noise. Oh, this is a good example here as well. So right in this section, the bomb sound, you want that bomb sound to be big, and a lot of that is this. Although later on it changed a little bit, and this section also became pretty important. But having this pulse 1 channel be part of the rolling sound allowed me to still have this sound while the bomb is going off. But then later, after the bomb has gone off and you've moved to the next window, you get the pulse and the noise. And I think these are basically just like tremolo. They basically just have tremolos on them. Oh, I guess this is an early version of the Pulse 1 channel when I was using Faceplant for it. Yeah, pretty much just tremolo, I think. Not sure. I guess I do have some vibrato on both of them as well, but vibrato and tremolo. Now the Super Bomb countdown is pretty simple. It's just these notes: pulse, 1, wave, and noise. One weird thing, I don't really know why this is, but this doesn't really have a transient, I guess, but for some reason it seems like if you play it from the start of the MIDI item, it doesn't have a transient. So I found that I often had to start playback from slightly before that. But there's that. Just a little click from the noise and kind of buzzy thing from the wave. I originally had it synced up to the flashes on the Super Bomb, but the flashes aren't in time, which seems kind of odd. I kind of thought it would be, you know, a like regular or speeding up thing, but they were kind of random, if I remember correctly. Like there weren't the same number of frames between them. So what I ended up doing was I just sort of controlled the rate myself. And then there's just this little thing at the end, right before the transient and explosion, which is the next thing. So there's this noise click transient thing right at the start, and then a pulse 2, wave, and noise channel. It's a nice thumpy impact kind of thing. This, which was one of the latest additions, it did always have a wave channel thing, but it wasn't until the end that it sounded like that. And then the noise. So this just has like a pitch envelope, controlling the pitch of that. Pretty basic. This, and this is another situation where like I'm kind of pushing what it could realistically do, but I have this sample and hold randomly changing the pitch of the note that the wave channel is playing. So random, it didn't have random modulation, but you could theoretically, you know, write out a sequence of random notes for it to play very quickly. It wouldn't actually be random, but you know, you could just pick random notes and have this sequence that sounds like random notes being played by this thing, which would create this effect. But I don't know if you could do that 200 times a second. You know, I don't know how fast you can trigger notes, basically. So there's another situation where like I'm definitely pushing or just straight up breaking what it could do, but I thought it sounded pretty sweet. So I was like, I'm not sure how it could handle this, so I'm just gonna do it. I think it sounds pretty good. And then I think the noise is basically just, looks like there's a pitch envelope that makes that thunk right at the start. And then there's just like this LFO here, or maybe I guess it's an envelope. Yeah, just this envelope that raises and lowers the pitch to make that whooshing kind of sound. Lay bomb. I don't know. I mean, it's just kind of a quick little series of tiny notes to make a sort of UI sound. Not much to say about that. There's also a button for pressing the R button, or a sound for pressing the R button, which plays when you are in morph ball mode for arming a power bomb, or when you're standing up for arming a missile, which is pretty similar. It's just, a little tiny note impulse. The door. Oh, okay. So this was, obviously it's towards the end. This was something later on in the process, but I was really happy with how this came out. Doesn't that sound so good? Oh, I love it. Oh, I love it. It's just really, I don't know. I think it sounds like a really good sort of mechanical door sound. Given these very tight restrictions. I don't actually remember how I made this. Oh, okay. I have an arpeggiator. And I guess that's really it, actually. Yeah, I guess I really just have an arpeggiator handling this. Oh, and then I guess, did I also have... Yeah, I had sample and hold with very low frequency. So basically just each time the note is triggered, it picks a random note. That adding a bit of variation. And then I think probably pretty much the same thing with the noise. Yeah, this thing is just making little offsets to the pitch of the noise. And then we've got, got the arpeggiator. Oh, okay. I guess. I'm not sure why, but I did just handle the volume envelope in here as well, I guess. I'm not really sure why I didn't combine them for all the noise things, but I guess it was just I had already set up the snap heat preset, so it was easy to just transfer it over. But yeah, I really like that sound. Bounce. This is when you drop down with the morph ball. Where is it? Oh, there it is. Why does it sound different? I thought it sounded higher pitch. I don't know. Yeah, I really thought that was a higher pitch, but maybe not. Hi, Bumble. Hi. Oh, no. Okay. So I think this is nope. I think this was a similar thing. Just, you know, just quick little notes, plucky notes. No Bumble, no Bumble. Oh, the missile. Okay, so this is obviously one of the most Bumble. No, sorry, Bumble's rubbing against the microphone. Obviously one of the more complex sounds here. So, it consists of firing the missile launch, the missile flying. Hi, Bumble. Yes, honey. The missile hit and the missile freeze. So, go through each of those. Oh, Bumble. Honey. So, it's the missile launch, just a little click. I'm not sure. Oh, I have, okay. Yeah, I have two envelopes set up here to get the ka-chunk sort of sound. Did I? No, I think I'm thinking of something else. Maybe. I don't remember. I think I sort of cheated with one of these a little bit, in that I had a macro that controlled like the pitch over time to make like a shh as it was going. And you know, it could be flying for different amounts of time, and so I set the macro to however long it was actually flying, which obviously the game itself wouldn't actually know how long the missile's gonna fly before it hits something. So it's not really realistic for me to do it like that, but it's a pretty minor thing, and it sounded good. So there's also this layer, which I guess is kind of like the rocket on the missile. How did I make that? Okay, yep, I've got sample and hold, randomizing the notes, and a pitch envelope to make a bit of a transient impact sort of thing. The missile hit. Oh, where am I? Ooh, that's pretty good. Yeah, so that's when it hits. Yeah, okay. So this missile hit is for when it hits a wall, and then these missile hits are for when it hits an enemy, I think. Oh, no, maybe not. Oh, maybe these are all for... Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess these are all for when it hits the wall. I guess missile freeze includes the hit and the freeze sound. for when it hits an enemy. But I was pretty happy with this missile hit sound. It's a nice, heavy, impactful sound. Pretty nice. We got some random pitch. Yep. Oh, I don't know if I said it before, but yeah, the wave channel's also locked to notes because it doesn't have the sweep capability. But you know, when you're modulating between notes that fast, it's not really that different. So got some pitch envelope and yeah, I don't know. It's just a pitch envelope. It seems like a lot of that sound is really just coming from the wave. Then the missile freeze. So this is when it actually hits the SAX. Oh, you can see here. So like normally this sound is this long, but because I fired another missile before that finished, I could still play this layer of the missile freeze, but hearing the sound of launching the next missile was more important than hearing the rest of this section of the missile freeze. So I think this is just like a tremolo. Oh yeah, I would use an LFO. Oh, I guess this is the LFO, never mind. But this sort of stepped LFO, controlling the volume macro that's going through the quantization that's controlling the vein. And you get this kind of jittery, shaky sound from it. And then this, which is more of the actual freeze sound. Like, I think this noise layer is more the hit, and then this is more the sound of the SAX being frozen. But combine those together. And then all together, just go from here. I was pretty happy with how that missile sound came out. Okay, I think I need to go. I definitely need to go. I will get back to this tomorrow, I guess. Still got a lot of sounds to do. But yeah, this was fun to start. I hope I didn't bore you too much with the like hour of backstory for why I was doing this and all the research and stuff, but all right, I will be back to finish this in a second. All right, well, I am finally back. As you can see, it has been over 2 months since I recorded the first part of this, but I am glad to finally be getting back to it to wrap it up. I believe we left off on Samus's missile, or the last thing we did was Samus's missile, so now we're on to her blaster. It only gets used once for shooting this door thing, but here are all the layers together. Nice. Oh, I should turn this down a bit. Nice punchy sci-fi weapon sound. Um, it's especially punchy because you're getting both the shot and it hitting something in basically the same moment. Like, I guess it's here is the shot and that's it hitting, I think. So it's pretty short, pretty punchy, but I think it sounds pretty good. I think this is just kind of like a little thing with pitch envelope and some pulse wave modulation, or what is modulating this? I don't know. Maybe it's in here. I don't know. Something's moving the pulse width. Little thumpy thing. Some kind of noisy sound from the wave channel. All right, I can't get stuck playing around with this. And just a little noise impulse, probably more for the hit than the shot, I would guess. Or it could just be like an explosion thing. I don't know. Not that I think there would really be an explosion involved here, but it doesn't really matter. I really like just this little section. Oh, let me undo all this. Okay. This little section here. So just this shot, it hitting the door opening, shooting a missile, it hitting the wall, which I think I probably went over just a little while ago for you. Just that little bit. It's a really satisfying section. I really love the sound of it. So then the SAX's weapon. It's kind of this fast descending sequence with, I believe these have like very fast pitch envelopes. Fast and deep, I guess. Pretty similar in the wave channel. It's not my favorite sound from this, but I think it works decently enough. The thing I think works well about it is that it sort of feels like it's screeching to me. Like it kind of sounds like it's breaking or something. It sounds very harsh and almost like some very loud sounds can sound like they're breaking the sound itself, like they're too loud that the world can't handle it. Like you know, airplanes flying over can kind of sound like that sometimes. And this kind of has a similar feel, I think. It's also kind of cool, I guess, that it's a very, very fast sequence, but the speed at which it descends is very slow, or at least fairly slow. So I don't know. There's a kind of cool thing there. But overall, it's not my super favorite. So now the footsteps. So these footsteps, I cut out a bit of this section in the finished video, just because I didn't want you to have to wait through like 10 seconds of waiting while the SAX walks around. But so it probably doesn't even really show up in the video, but some of these are muted because in the original video, the SAX its footsteps aren't constant. So the little taps are the SAX's footsteps. They kind of sound like they're part of the music, but those are its footsteps. And so you can see them here. They're these little spikes here. So it'll just stop for a little while, like it's turning around or listening for something or something like that. And so I muted its footsteps here. I'm not sure if it was in exactly the same spots or what, but to do that same thing of having it not just be like monotonously walking at the same rate the entire time. Not that it really mattered because I cut that out anyway. So this is, it's both the SAX's and Samus's footsteps are honestly like some of my favorite sounds in this, because just how well they work despite how simple they are. I think, at least I think they work quite well. Let me so well, we'll go over the noise first. It's really just a little noise burst. That is basically a little bit of LFO and pitch envelope, but it's pretty much just a little noise burst. But the wave channel is where the like character of the footstep comes from, and it is just a very low frequency waveform, one of the 4-bit 64 sample long waveforms. So with it being this short and at a low frequency, you probably only hear like a couple cycles of the waveform maybe. So it turns it more into just like a very short sampler of these, very short but quite complex waveforms. And I think that ended up making for a quite good sounding footstep, at least for something of this fidelity. Now something that I've this is my third time recording this. Something that I only just noticed is that I have some illegal pitch shifting going on here. So I as you've probably seen through this, I didn't use Resamplematic much. It's what I had used for the wave channel initially, because I think I probably already went into it, but basically it seems like Vital and Vital and Phase Plant and Serum, I think, can't handle 4-bit audio. Like, you drag it in and it doesn't know what to do. It just kind of freezes. Once I figured that out and got around to re-exporting them at 24-bit, then I was able to use Vital. But until then, I used Resamplematic, and this was, you know, one of the earlier one of the earlier sounds that I made. And so it was with Resamplematic, and I just noticed that there's this random pitch modulation going on here, which, as you'll see in a second, I did do this on Samus's Footsteps as well, but not like this. This is illegal. It cannot be done. It can't do fractions of semitones like this. I think I already gave my whole spiel about, you know, random modulation not being possible, but like you could, you know, sequence an appearingly random sequence of pitches, so like you could have a similar effect even if it wasn't actually random. So like I don't really have a problem with the random modulation itself. The thing I have a problem with here is that it is not whole semitones, because it wouldn't be able to do that. So that really bugs me that I did this early on, I guess, and completely forgot about it and didn't notice it again until just now. So yeah, that really bugs me. It's a super minor thing, because, okay, so let's hear it as it is. And then just turn this off. It's like, okay, maybe it's a little... There's a bit more variation, but it's really minor. And again, I could still do random pitch modulation. It would just have to be in whole semitones. Part of the reason I'm re-recording this now is I got off onto a tangent of trying to recreate this, just switch this one over to Vital, but I couldn't find this exact waveform. It says it's 5, but this 5 doesn't line up with that. It seems like it's a different waveform, so I don't know. But in any case, short 4-bit waveform played at a very low pitch in little short bursts, I think makes for a pretty good footstep. So Samus's Footsteps are very similar. However, since they don't show up until later, by this point I had switched over to using Vital for the wave channel, and as you can see here, did the random pitch modulation, but did it correctly because these are note locked. Otherwise, it's basically the same. I think these are at a higher pitch. Those were at C0. This is at D2, but I feel like it has to be lower than D2. I'm just not sure how. there isn't a pitch envelope that could be, you know, changing the, like offsetting the pitch. I don't know how, but I feel like these must be lower than D2. Let me... No, actually... Oh. I guess it is actually at like D2. What note am I on here? Yeah, I'm on C2. Interesting. Yeah, I really thought hers, Samus's was also at a lower pitch, but maybe not. It's interesting. Again, it has been 2 months since I started this. And, you know, even longer since I actually made this thing. But, yeah, so, you know, probably partially because of the pitch. Also, you know, it's using a different waveform, obviously. But even though the footsteps are extremely similar to the SAX's footsteps, the noise channel might even be exactly the same. Let's hear those. No, that's like lower pitch, I guess. But yeah, it's, you know, just a little noise impulse, and then just this wave channel has a very different character than the SAX's footsteps. And I think it's cool how much character the wave channel is able to bring to their footsteps. Okay. Samus landing. So, I think this is probably just the exact same thing as Samus's footstep. Waveform 6. Waveform 6. Yeah, I think it's probably just the same as her footstep, which would make sense, but with a different noise impulse. Yeah, with some tremolo to give it that kind of gritty sound. And then some LFO modulation of the noise. The spin jump. I think it's pretty much just this envelope and this envelope for the volume. Just controlling the pitch. I think it works fairly well for the spin jump. Pretty simple. The jump. This very, very fast little upward sequence on pulse 1. series of little plucky upward pitch envelope, which is kind of interesting. And then some noise. Pretty similar thing. Oh, yeah, it looks like it's pretty much exactly the same thing. Just with noise instead of the pulse wave. Unmorph. Oops. I don't know. What is this? E4 D8. Okay. I don't know. Yeah, just a little click. Not that much to say about it. Okay, here we go. So here's something I'll have plenty to say about. Samus's death. So this is by far the most complex sound effect. And also the longest. So yeah, let me just play through it once here. Oh, yeah, I'm at a low rate. There we go. So I wanted to have a sort of building up section in the black screen and then it to kind of explode when her armor falls off and the screen turns white. So I have this kind of, I have two, well, in both halves of it, I have each of the channels represented. So we can go through each of those. Little increasing rate bouncing. I just think of Bouncing Ball, Bucephalus Bouncing Ball by Aphex Twin, which is the first Aphex Twin song I heard because it's in the Pi soundtrack, which is a really, really good movie that I need to rewatch. And that soundtrack is just absolutely phenomenal. But I always think of that with this sort of, you know, sound that is increasing in rate over time. Then the wave channel, pretty similar thing, but just for more of a synthy element. So this I have an arpeggiator that is increasing, like the notes that it's arpeggiating through are increasing over time and, you know, moving upwards. So you get this increasing energy intensity kind of thing. I wonder why I used this and not Psyche's. The arpeggiator I used most was what is it? is it? I don't know. It's on every wave channel track. Hyfudiar, that's it. Oh, maybe you can't modulate the speed of it or something like that. I don't remember. But the synth itself just sounds like a plucky thing. Actually, no pitch envelope, I guess. Oh, but this has a super fast decay. Oh, and okay, I'm also increasing the... Am I? Maybe I'm not. Am I messing this up? Oh, there we go. I was pushing the wrong button before. Or maybe that was in a previous recording, I don't remember. I remember I was trying to open up the envelopes, but I guess I was hitting the wrong key combination. Yeah, here we go. I should open this up for all of them. Yes, let's see what else I modulated on this one. Macro 2 and macro 1. What is this rate controlling? Oh, okay, so that's what's doing the Bucephalus bouncing ball thing. And it's also increasing the pitch envelope. Then wave 1. I think this is probably pretty much the same thing for the bouncing ball kind of thing. Oh, I guess it's also increasing the pitch. I guess. Oh, I actually do have... I don't know. Yeah, because you can see here that this is the envelope for the Psyche's arpeggiator. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why I used the other one here, but... yeah, so increasing the arpeggiation rate over time and increasing the envelope depth. Envelope depth. And the decay length, right? Or maybe that's... Decay length. Yeah, yeah. Also increasing the decay length. Then for the noise... Oh, that's not it. Is this it? There we go. Oops. Kind of a little stuttery, jittery noise thing. What am I doing with this? Using one of these weird LFOs for what? Volume? Yeah, I don't know. Let me try playing it. I Yeah, it seems like I basically just... Yeah, it's pretty simple. Just noise into a gain controlled by this LFO. I think that's basically it, right? Is there any... is there any pitch envelope or... I don't know. So many things are mapped to so many things. I don't know. I think that's basically it. And then... excuse the person with the outrageously loud truck. Now for the explosion section. Okay, so this is a as I mentioned before, and I think I probably explained in much more depth in the first section. I went a little wild with some of the modulation. You know, like in case I didn't explain it before, but I'm pretty sure I did. You know, arpeggiation is a very common thing in like chiptune music and stuff like that. Like you don't want to dedicate 3 channels to playing a tritone chord, so you would have one channel arpeggiate between 3 notes very quickly, which sort of creates the sound of that chord, but in its own unique way. And sometimes these arpeggiations will get very fast, so much so that it won't even really sound like an arpeggiator. It just sounds like that sound. My question is, how like you can keep turning up that arpeggiation rate. At what point does that then just kind of become FM, and at which point does it not become possible anymore? And I basically decided I don't really care, so I just kind of did it. Okay, so this is controlling 1, 3, and 4. Is it not controlling 1? What? Oh, macro 1 snap peep. Okay. What is this controlling? Oh, I guess that's just the volume. Okay. That's simple. And then 2 and 3 in vital. The pitch envelope depth and the LFO rate for LFO 2 and 3. Okay, so this LFO 2 is controlling the volume, which is, yeah, I have it put into these steps so that I don't which actually, no, I'm thinking it doesn't really work right. Is there a way I could have... I guess I should... I could have made an LFO envelope, or I could probably have just mapped a macro. Let's see, is there a macro that doesn't matter? Yeah, this one doesn't matter. So I think I could have just mapped a macro here, and then come here, macro 1, volume, and then I could have just drawn in the steps here. 16 steps, not however many I'm drawing here, but so I guess that's actually what I should have done, because as is this, I have it outputting volume correctly from here, but then this is then also controlling the volume, so then you're going to be breaking the volume into more than 16 steps. So yeah, that's not quite accurate. It's another thing that's so minor that you can't hear it. So it doesn't really matter, but yeah, that's another thing that's gonna bug me. But whatever. But yeah, basically just increasing the LFO rate over time up to a very, very fast rate. And I don't know, is that about it? Maybe. I don't know. So then let's listen to the wave channel. Oh, I guess, let's see, so macro 3, macro 4. Wait, what is this? Oh, okay, macro 4 is controlling the pitch. I see. And then 3, it's not just, it's increasing and then decreasing the rate, so you get that sort of, I don't know, that sort of sound. Kind of similar here, but some different stuff going on. Yeah, I did the same thing here as well. I don't know, is there... Yeah, I guess I could have just used a macro, mapped it to the volume, and then set up the mapping, or the remapping in the matrix. It's also, yeah, it's just not really that big of a deal. So macro 1 going down, macro 2 a little more complex, and then macro 3 up and down. So this one, okay, that one, LFO1 is controlling the volume, LFO2 is controlling the pitch, which is note locked. What is controlling this? Oh, I guess this is probably controlling the LFO2 to oscillator 1 transpose. Yeah. Yeah, controlling modulation 6 amount. Yeah, I don't know. So I had originally used this as the pulse 2 sound for the second half. I don't know. I do kind of like it, but it didn't really mesh right. Let me bring in the others. Like, I feel like you could almost just have all of the build up and then have this, which I think was actually an idea I had considered at a point. So something like this. But obviously it's a little anticlimactic. I don't know. I do really like this. I remember having quite a bit of trouble getting the timing of these notes right. So I do like it, but it just doesn't work quite right in this context. So then I didn't use Pulse 2, I guess. Okay. I thought I used... Am I missing it? Oh, yeah, I guess I didn't actually use Pulse 2 in the second half. Huh. Yeah, I really thought I had replaced it with something, but I guess not. But to make up for that, I have 2 noise sections. I think this was supposed to be like her armor ripping apart or exploding. I think it has kind of like a little impact kick kind of section, and then it increases. Yeah, like this. So the pitch comes down to give that sort of thump, and then comes up gradually to make the sort of rip sound. And then this one. Which honestly kind of fulfills a similar role to what I had been doing in the Pulse section. This sort of like something gradually slowing down. Kind of the opposite of the Bucephalus bouncing ball things from the first half. LFO, envelope LFO rate, envelope decay rate, and pitch. Okay. Okay, so this envelope is triggering the envelope. By the way, if you use Faceplant and haven't used this before, map random and LFOs to this trigger on envelopes. It's particularly useful with random, I think, for getting just little random triggers of envelopes. It's a pretty cool trick. I was just making a plasma cutter sound the other day and used that a lot for it, and it's pretty cool. Yeah, so that's slowing down the envelope triggers over time, lowering the pitch over time, and then the decay, increasing the decay rate to kind of fill in for the lower or the slower envelope triggers. Yeah, so that's about it. Let me just like reload the project. There might be a way to do that easily, but I'm just gonna do this just in case I changed anything. Just want to play through it one last time before the end of the video. But yeah, I mean, yeah, it's, you know, obviously been a while at this point. I probably made this like 3 months ago, something like that. But I really had a ton of fun with this project. I'm not, as I think I've said before, I'm not really a big fan of redesigns, generally speaking, because I like working in game engines and middleware and stuff. But this being so restrictive, both in terms of like I can't use effects or anything. I'm just working with straight synthesis, and I'm very, very restricted with my channels, obviously. So the heavy restrictions combined with it being, you know, all MIDI. So it's like, I don't know, it's just all sequenced like this in a kind of cool way. And I don't know, I thought there was something else as well. But just a lot of these restrictions coming together in a way that made it really fun to work on in a funny way. I don't know. It is something about restrictions that, like, being restricted with what tools you have access to can make you think about things a lot more creatively. And I found that to be very true here. And yeah, I just had a lot of fun with it. So let me play through the video. And then that'll be the end of this. So thank you very much for watching. Teeth redesign should hopefully be coming along at some point. It's been, you know, like 5 months since I made that, or something like that. I think it was around like the start of January, maybe. I guess that'd be like 4 months, but yeah. It's been a while, but I would like to go over that because it's a wild track. Oh, also, I want to be working on a live setup, basically. I don't know, like, how people do live shows or anything, but I want to do some sort of live things in my area, just kind of impromptu. I'm not like booking shows or something like that. I want to just, you know, go down to the underpass, the underpass mentioned in the track that was like live in the underpass or something, and just, you know, set up a speaker and kind of improvise stuff for a little while. And so I want to develop my toolkit, like what synths and presets and effects and all these layers that I want to have together, and how do I want to transition between them all and stuff like that. I want to work on that. And so I'm going to be streaming, and I'll be working on that on the streams. I think I probably won't be talking on the streams, so it'll just kind of be like me working on these live sets, but it also being kind of a live set in and of itself. It's probably just gonna be, you know, a bit messier. But yeah, that should be cool. So here we go. Oh, let me make this bigger. I just realized, I think I must have missed something. Because there's a little like sound at the start of Samus dying. Did I miss that? Oh, you know what? I also missed Samus damage. Huh. Joke's on you. That wasn't actually the end of the video. Yep. Okay. So, yeah, I just missed this. I thought Samus dying was the last sound in the track, or in the project, but apparently not. Sounds like it's using that chunky LFO. Yep. This can give a really, really cool effect. Yeah, I don't know. It's like it's modulating the pulse width a bit. Some pitch envelope. Oh, and some LFO as well. And then, yeah, the chunky LFO. And then this. Oh yeah, I think I have some automation here, decreasing the pitch over time. Yep. And the envelope depth. Make it less clicky and more not clicky. I don't know. Yeah. Okay. So that's actually the end now. What's this? Oh, these are just my presets. Pulse 1, Pulse 2, wave and noise presets. Okay. There we go. It's actually done now. So thank you for watching. Stay tuned for more at some point. Also, I am working on a Metroidvania right now that I'm making. Another portfolio project, along the lines of Hollow City. Metroidvanias are obviously very important to me. And this is a horror Metroidvania, big surprise there, that is, draws inspiration from Alien Isolation and Dead Space, I would say. Particularly in terms of like how the weapons you have access to are really just tools. But yeah, there will be more about that at some point in the future. I make no promises as to what it's actually going to end up being like or when it will be out or anything like that, but I'm having fun working on it. And obviously sound is going to be a main focus of it. I'm just working on the actual like game stuff right now, so then I can fill it all in with sound, but it should be very atmospheric and tense and hopefully scary, which would be cool. So yeah, there's a little sneak preview into what I'm working on right now if you stuck around for 2 hours of this. yeah, thanks for watching.